Teacher saw little boy wearing same clothes 47 days, what 103 Hell's Angels did next. The first thing that broke the teacher's heart was not the faded color of the little boy's shirt, or the way the sleeves had grown too short for his thin arms. It was the realization that she had been counting the days without meaning to, and when the number reached 47, she understood something was deeply wrong. 47 mornings, 47 afternoons, 47 times a small boy had walked into her classroom wearing the exact same clothes, washed thin by time, clinging to him like a quiet cry no one else seemed to hear. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of compassion, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel, Only Kindness. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that may need them most. Marissa Hale had been teaching for nearly 15 years, long enough to notice patterns most people overlooked. She noticed which children avoided eye contact, which ones flinched at raised voices, and which students carried the weight of adulthood long before they should. But nothing had ever unsettled her like noticing the same gray hoodie and worn jeans on a little boy named Owen Calder day after day, week after week, until the seasons themselves seemed to change around him while his clothes did not. Owen was 8 years old, small for his age, with light brown hair that never quite lay flat and eyes that carried a kind of quiet awareness that felt too old for him. He was polite, painfully so, always raising his hand, always saying thank you, always apologizing when he made even the smallest mistake. He never complained, never asked for anything, never drew attention to himself. If it weren't for the clothes, he might have faded entirely into the background of the classroom. Marissa first noticed the repetition during a cold stretch in early autumn. At first, she told herself it was coincidence. Some children favored certain outfits. Some families did laundry less often. But as the days passed, she began to see the details others missed. The fraying seam near the elbow. The faint stain near the hem that never disappeared. The shoes with soles worn so thin she wondered how his feet stayed warm on the walk to school. And yet, Owen never smelled unclean. His clothes were always neatly folded on his small body, his hair always combed. Someone, somewhere, was trying. She began watching him more closely, noticing how he lingered in the classroom longer than the others, how he hesitated when the bell rang at the end of the day, how he ate slowly, savoring each bite of the free lunch provided by the school. She noticed how he tucked leftover crackers into his backpack with a care that suggested they were precious. Marissa carried the concern home with her, the way teachers often do, replaying the image of Owen sitting alone during recess, drawing pictures of houses with large windows and smiling stick figures standing close together. She thought about reporting it immediately, but experience had taught her caution. Not every sign of hardship meant neglect. Sometimes it meant struggle, sometimes it meant pride, sometimes it meant parents who were doing the best they could with almost nothing. On the 47th day, something finally shifted inside her. It was a bright morning, sunlight pouring through the classroom windows, and Owen's hoodie looked thinner than ever against the warmth of the day. As the class lined up for an assembly, Marissa noticed him tugging at the sleeves, as if suddenly aware of how small they'd become. His face flushed with embarrassment when another child glanced his way. That was the moment Marissa knew she could no longer stay silent. She didn't confront him directly. Instead, she spoke with the school counselor, then the principal. They reviewed his file carefully. There were no reports of abuse. His attendance was perfect. His grades were strong. But there was a note, buried deep in the records, about a recent change in guardianship. Owen lived with his uncle, a man named Raymond Calder, after his mother passed away the previous winter. His father had never been in the picture. Raymond worked odd jobs, according to the file, and had declined assistance programs, insisting they were managing. Marissa asked if she could visit the home, officially and respectfully. The school agreed. The small house sat on the edge of town, its paint peeling, its yard overgrown but not neglected. There was effort there, even if resources were scarce. Raymond answered the door with tired eyes and a guarded expression that softened slightly when he saw the school badge. Inside, the house was clean but sparse. The furniture mismatched. The air carried the faint scent of laundry detergent and cheap coffee. Raymond listened quietly as Marissa explained her concerns. He didn't get defensive. He didn't get angry. He simply sat down heavily at the small kitchen table and folded his hands, as if the weight of the truth had finally become too heavy to hold alone. He explained that after his sister's death, everything had fallen on him at once. Medical bills, funeral costs, the sudden responsibility of raising a child he loved deeply but didn't always know how to help. He worked construction when he could, but jobs were inconsistent. New clothes were a luxury. Food came first. Rent came first. Owen never complained, never asked, never let on that he needed more. Marissa left that house with tears burning behind her eyes, shaken by the quiet dignity of a man doing his best and a child who had learned far too early how to endure. She wanted to help, but she knew that charity without dignity could wound as deeply as neglect. She needed a way to help that wouldn't make Owen feel small. That was when she thought of her brother-in-law, a man named Lucas Hale, a motorcycle mechanic with a past he rarely talked about and a present defined by loyalty and quiet generosity. Lucas rode with a group many people feared without understanding, a group known publicly for their intimidating image but privately for an unbreakable code. The Hells Angels. Marissa hesitated before making the call. She knew the reputation. She also knew the truth behind it, the men who fixed neighbors' cars for free, who escorted abused families safely across state lines, who showed up when no one else would. When Lucas answered, she told him the story, her voice breaking as she reached the 47 days. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Lucas said simply that he would handle it. What happened next unfolded quietly, deliberately, and with a level of coordination that stunned even Marissa. Lucas shared Owen's story with his chapter, not as a request, but as information. He told them about the little boy who never complained, about the uncle carrying more than he could bear, about the teacher who noticed. And one by one, without meetings, without announcements, without anyone asking for recognition, the men responded. 103 members. 103 lives, each with their own scars, their own histories, their own reasons for believing in second chances. They didn't pool money into a single fund. They did something more personal. Over the course of a single weekend, they quietly organized everything. Clothes, shoes, school supplies, winter coats for the coming months. Not random hand-me-downs, but new items, carefully chosen, tags still attached. Each man contributed something, some more than others, none expecting thanks. One member, a former carpenter, built a sturdy desk sized perfectly for a child. Another arranged a discreet connection to a local grocery store that would ensure the Calder household never went hungry again, no questions asked. They coordinated with the school to deliver everything in a way that protected Owen's dignity. No assemblies, no announcements, no public gestures, just a plan. The following Monday, Owen arrived at school expecting another ordinary day. Instead, Marissa gently guided him to the counselor's office, where several boxes sat stacked neatly against the wall. She told him there had been a mix-up with supplies and that some things needed sorting. She asked if he would help. As Owen opened the first box, his hands trembled. Inside were clothes in his size. Colors he liked. A jacket that looked warm enough to face winter without fear. Shoes that fit. A backpack that didn't have a broken zipper. He didn't cry at first. He just stood there, silent, absorbing the reality that something had changed. Marissa explained carefully that sometimes people in the world noticed when others were struggling, even if they didn't ask for help. She told him this was not charity, but kindness. That there were people who believed he deserved comfort and warmth simply because he existed. That afternoon, when Owen walked out of school wearing a new jacket, his posture was different. His steps were lighter, his eyes brighter, and when he reached the sidewalk, he saw something that made him stop. Across the street, lined up quietly, stood motorcycles. Not revving, not loud, just parked. Men stood beside them, leather vests worn, faces weathered, expressions calm and respectful. Lucas stood at the front, nodding gently when Owen looked his way. There were no speeches, no explanations, just a presence that said, without words, "You are not alone." Raymond arrived moments later, panic flashing across his face until Marissa explained. He tried to refuse. Pride surged. But when Lucas stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder, not heavy, not threatening, just steady, Raymond finally let himself breathe. For the first time since his sister's death, he wasn't carrying everything by himself. Life didn't transform overnight into something perfect. There were still bills, still long hours, still grief. But the fear eased. Owen began wearing different clothes, not to show off, but because he could. He laughed more. He raised his hand with confidence. His drawings changed, houses filled with color, figures standing tall. The Hells Angels didn't disappear after that day. They didn't hover either. They checked in quietly, made sure winter coats arrived on time, ensured Raymond had work when he needed it, helped fix the house when something broke. Always respectful, always in the background. Marissa watched it all unfold with awe and humility. She had taught lessons about kindness for years, but this was something deeper. This was kindness without conditions, without applause, without expectation. Months later, on a bright daytime spring afternoon, Owen stood on a small stage at school during a student art showcase. His drawing depicted a long road under a wide sky, motorcycles riding alongside a small figure walking confidently forward. The title read simply, "People Who Help." As the audience applauded, Marissa felt tears slide freely down her face. She thought of 47 days. Of noticing, of choosing to act, of what happens when people refuse to look away. If this story has touched your heart, if it has reminded you that kindness still exists in unexpected places, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with others, and comment what moved you most. Your engagement helps spread stories that matter. And before we end, here's a special request from us. Please comment the word kindness below if you believe even the smallest act of care can change a life. Because sometimes, it only takes one teacher to notice, one child to endure, and 103 people willing to show up quietly to remind the world that compassion doesn't need permission, and hope can arrive on two wheels, in broad daylight, exactly when it's needed most.